Survivor 46 is here, and so is On Fire, the only official Survivor podcast, and we have a twist this season. The winner of Survivor 45, Dee Valladares, will be joining us every week.
We're going behind the scenes of the biggest moments, the how and the why things happen, and the strategy and analysis you can only get from someone like me, a Survivor winner.
Listen to On Fire, the official Survivor podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
This episode is brought to you by Hyperice, the leader in advanced warm-up and recovery technology. They have tons of innovative products, like Venom-heated wearables to help soothe sore back muscles, Normatec compression boots to speed up recovery and increase circulation, and Hypervolt massage guns to improve mobility. Loved by athletes like Naomi Osaka and Erling Haaland. Try them yourself. Get 10% off your order with the code MOVE at hyperice.com.
You can't mention British ice skating without mentioning you-know-who. But let's see how far we get into the podcast till someone says those famous dancers at Olympic glory in Sarajevo in 1984. But that's looking back. We want to look ahead and what an exciting time it is to be British ice skating. I'm John.
And I'm Michael. This is Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy, the behind-the-scenes conversations of British sport. I have said it before many times on this podcast and on our Anything But Footy podcast, but my first memory of Olympic sport, even before Los Angeles, was those famous purple costumes and that dance to Bolero in Sarajevo. But what about 2023 and the season ahead after some groundbreaking results over the last winter, across British skating, and all ahead of what promises to be a fantastic Winter Olympics in Milano Cortino in 2026.
Hi, Michelle Draper, CEO of British Ice Skating.
We're so pleased to have you on the podcast. We have been pursuing you for some time, a little bit like a couple of ice skaters trying to track someone down on the rink. Thank you for talking to us. How exciting is it at the moment at British ice skating? Because it feels exciting.
Aside from being a very passionate sport team, volunteers within ice skating, I think the progress that we're making, the recent funding that will support the progression, European Championships, everything that's going on, and I think where we've come from and where we're going to, is fantastic. And I think, that's everybody's really excited, a brilliant board. The whole picture is positive for the sport, I believe. With the NGB for all disciplines, so we cover long track, short track, synchro, dance, pairs, singles. So, quite a broad spectrum of disciplines. Based in Sheffield, we moved there, I think 4 years ago. We used to be over a toy shop in Nottingham, and it sort of didn't sit appropriately, really, and wanted to be more in the hub of sports, which we are in Sheffield. And we cover all of Great Britain, and from grassroots to the elite programme, really. With the team, when I started out as CEO, I think we had a team of about 10. We're progressively growing. I think we're about 14 probably, with full-time equivalent, covering everything. So very dedicated, busy, small team doing the work.
How did you get to become CEO at British Ice Skating? What's your journey?
It's probably one of the most obscure. So my background, very oddly, was a police officer for 13 years, and then left the police and became a social worker. And I'm still a registered social worker, and started in various jobs in between, whether teaching in colleges or working in Women's Refuge. I lived in Ireland for a few years. And did a lot of work. I suppose a lot of my work at the time, I was a single parent of 3 children, so brought 3 daughters up on my own, so sort of did work to fit the lifestyle I needed to do to bring up the children, and then got a job in 2014 as the safeguarding officer at NISA, as it was, One of the first things I did, I must say, when we changed was change the trading name of the organisation, because we used to get phone calls from people asking for the corner shop. So when we were NISA as well. So yeah, started in 2014 as safeguarding officer, and then stepped in to support the organisation as an interim CEO after the previous CEO left, and I'm still here now after being appointed. So 5 years later as CEO. So not your normal progression into a CEO of an organisation.
But Christopher Dean was a police constable, wasn't he, before he became a figure skater?
Hang on. He's mentioned them. We've got 10 minutes into the podcast. He's mentioned them.
So it's obviously a well-trodden path. But what was figure skating, speed skating, anything you'd ever sort of thought about before?
No, I mean, I can remember previously sitting watching the Elise Christie at the Olympics when she lost her gold medals historically. But I was involved in sports as a young person. And then in the safeguarding, I've got a real belief, and always have had a belief, about sport being beneficial to children and adults. So after I'd done my social work, sort of thought, actually, where can I have a passion for something that's really beneficial for children as well? So, and wanted to work in sport. So that's how I progressed to, I suppose, safeguarding in sport, rather than, as a sort of an area of work. And it stemmed from there, really. Ice skating, I can skate, not very well. And used to go to the old Nottingham rink when I was a child a few times, where Christopher Dean skated and Jane skated. We'll get that in there now. So yeah, sort of was better at roller skating. Yeah, so that's my involvement in skating, really.
What takes up most of your time? Is it dealing with your elite skaters and those that we might get to cheer on at the Olympics, or is it that mass participation, that grassroots part of your sport?
I have an amazing set of staff in roles that deal with the majority of those. My role sort of varies from contracts, for governance, for HR, for trying to get sponsorship. So, shout out anybody watching this that wants to sponsor British ice skating, please give me a call. So it's sort of a real broad spectrum of work. We've got a new app coming out for our grassroots sport at the minute, and a new programme. So supporting the team on that. I get my hands dirty at time. If the events are running, I'll sit on the front desk and book people in. So yeah, anything really, but overseeing and supporting, I think, is leading the team, really.
As your role, you mentioned there some of the things that you do. I think it's just been announced that you've met the compliance requirements for the Code of Sports Governance with UK Sport. People will know that UK Sport want British success at the Olympics coming up in Paris and Milano, to win and win well. Is that something that you back, and from your experience, what you've talked about, I would say that you would be a firm supporter of that?
Absolutely, yeah. It's no sort of hidden thing that as an organisation we lost funding a number of years ago. It's taken time and to embed, but make sure our governance meets the standards, because I want to support all our athletes, and they need funding to achieve their best, really. Our athletes have done exceptionally well, our elite athletes, to get to where they are without that funding. But we got our first pot of funding again back in October last year, and we just got a reboot because of how well they've done. Actually, as an organisation, we want to do it properly, and we want to make sure we're doing it well. And the codes support that, really, for us as an organisation.
And you rebranded to British Ice Skating.
Yeah, it was, like I say, I think we have to raise our profile as an organisation. Being known as the old name within the sport was recognised, but if you didn't know, if you'd said to anybody, do you know who NISA are, they wouldn't have had a clue. So one of the first tasks that I wanted to do, like I say, I was only intending to be here as interim CEO for 6 months, and it was progressing things I thought that would raise our profile, which I think is important in any sport, really.
Last season then, and tell us about the success that British ice skating had, and certainly obviously a medal at the European Figure Skating Championships, and fourth in the world for Falola Fear and Lewis Gibson.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. The progression and where those guys have come from and what they do. The silver at the Europeans was the highest medal in 30 years. And, the Olympics, how they did their first Olympics, given the environment. And then we also had Cornelius and Elia in the long track. Cornelius last year got a bronze medal at the World Championships, and Elia got a medal at the Europeans. So first time in female history for British ice skating that we've podiumed in long track. Looking at how they've progressed in all disciplines is fantastic.
What can funding do to take them to the next level? Because to really punch through to the British public, they'll need to repeat those results at the Olympic Games, won't they?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. Of Cornelius and Elia started their own coffee company to try and help fund it, what they were doing. So putting a package around. Unfortunately, long track, we don't have a long track in the UK, so they have to train out in the Netherlands. So we've set up a program of sorts out there with a team around them, and to give them that support, and I'm sure they'll keep their brewing company going, but give them the opportunities that they're not working full time as well as trying to train for Olympics. Lila and Lewis works. Lila, I believe, has been doing a degree, and it's that support and actually that recognition as well. I think that's a huge, that they are, what they're achieving is amazing, and it's being recognised.
How much are you proud of the academy that launched? So I think it was in 2021 when you launched the Ice Skating Academy, and what's the prospects coming through there? I think there's quite a few youth competitors in action as well at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, although they sort of actually weren't part of the academy, James and Phoebe are training out in America with Nick and Penny, who are our previous Olympians, and they've come through the system. And placed fourth in the junior world in the junior Grand Prix last year, and have just gone through to senior this year. So, huge expectations for them. And Ashley and Atoll, who train out of Streatham, are two of our dance teams that are, take part in the academy, and their coach actually assists in it. So I think it's about recognising our skills and our ability out in the sport, but making it as accessible as we can, which is always the problem. It's not a cheap sport, and it's how we can support it and progress it. And recognising we are a dance nation. I think we'll go back to the Chris and Jane. We're known for our dance couples, and it's a history that we want to keep going, along with improving every other discipline and moving forward in every other discipline.
How important was the first Grand Prix skating event to be held in Britain, in Sheffield last year, as a profile?
Oh, it's huge. And I think I had a level of naivety beforehand, the sort of thinking it's just it's a senior Grand Prix. And bear in mind, we had about 12 to 14 weeks, I think, to set it up. And, I must admit, I think the majority of the team didn't get any sleep for about 14 weeks. It was chaos going through budgets at midnight. But it was absolutely fantastic. And, they did it because actually the team wanted the athletes to have the opportunities and for our members to be able to see it within the UK and that level of skating. And it was a huge achievement. And, by all accounts, exceptionally well received. I wish we could do it every year, but I haven't got the money to do it every year. But then, sort of as a profile on the part of our strategic aims of the organisation, it is to bring this, more international events to the UK, which leads us on to, the next one is the Europeans in 2026, which, has been the last few days has been a lot of the work I've been working with the team on, looking at what we're doing and a new steering group and various factors around the Europeans coming to the UK.
Those European Figure Skating Championships in Sheffield? How huge will it be?
I want it to be the best ever, and I want everybody in the UK coming along. It's a pre-Olympics. You're going to see all the top athletes there. It's going to be an amazing event for the country. We held one back in 2012, and that was, went down brilliantly, and people attended. And I just think it's about recognising, and I think what you said at the beginning about the profile of the sport, it's we have a lot of people ice skating, a huge amount of people. If we're looking at probably people going on public sessions, across the UK. We've probably got 7 million people, going to an ice rink or going with their family or having a day out skating, and then the public skate. So it's about raising that profile, giving our athletes an opportunity to be on the world stage in their own country as well, which is hugely beneficial for them.
And you mentioned there, obviously, it's going to be pre-Olympics, because you have this curious figure skating calendar where you have the Europeans, the Olympics, and then the World Championships, don't you?
Yeah.
Always at the sort of start of the spring.
Actually, it seems like a long way away, but it's only 2 and a bit years really now, and you're like, oh my goodness, it'll soon be here. But I think holding the Grand Prix last year gave us a really good foundation for running these events and where we could have done things better and how we can improve things. And looking at about the fan experience as well at Europeans, what we can do to make sure it's better than ever.
And Michelle, you mentioned your situation at home and how you brought up your family while working. And that's such an inspiration for a lot of people, I would think, to hear that story, because we've done a number of these podcasts, and CEOs in sport, it's quite a difficult thing to get into. And actually, it's quite a closed environment. So the fact that you can push your way through and be one of these CEOs is a real inspiration.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's I find this difficult talking about myself, and I've been told off about this before. I think, look, the bottom line is, I think you work hard, and my inspiration has always been my children. I want them to do well. I want them to achieve the best that they're happy with, and one of the things that as an employer and a British Ice Skating as a team, we're really based on is getting the right work-life balance and making sure that people have issues, whether it be childcare or mental health or illness, that we support that and we support each other. And that's been a core ethos, I think, from when I took over, that it's you bring out the best in people if you support them. And I would always, as a CEO, that's where I look at and saying, how do we best support our staff? Not just in the CPD of the workplace, but in their personal development as well as individuals. So, and support them to do their job, showing the passion and not undervaluing what value you have as an individual. If you said to me 6 years ago I was going to be CEO of British Ice Skating, I'd have laughed probably. But look at your transferable skills, look at what skills you actually have. We joke about the police. And people might say, what's that? But actually, I'm very good at crisis management or problem solving. And I'm sure a lot of that goes back to my police service and what I did over 13 years in the police, and looking at, how you deal with situations and making instant decisions. One thing I do hate is doing anything like this. And I was speaking to you earlier saying that I would normally encourage Robin Cousins. He's our, vice chair and president, and you couldn't ask for a better ambassador to represent the sport. So I would normally say, come on, Robin, you do it. And my team have been saying, no, you must do it. You've got to do it, Michelle. And because it's something I'm not comfortable with, but I think you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone at times. And I phoned the office this morning and I was getting a prep talk by the whole team saying, you can do it, you can do it. So I think that's, side pushing yourself outside of your barriers and doing things. And it's not normally, not always as bad as you think it might be.
Well, we are very grateful that you've joined us on Great British Bosses.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
We're talking to British Ice Skating CEO Michelle Draper. This is Great British Bosses.
We love to hear about winter sport. We've had Nigel Hull from British Curling on. We've had Vicky Gosling from GB Snow Sport on as well. You mentioned Robin Cousins there, so I'm going to bring in Jane Torvill and Christopher Dean on top of that. Is it useful for you as an organisation in 2023 to have that history of what people like John Curry, Robin Cousins, Torvill and Dean have done in the past?
Yeah, I think we have to, we can't recognise the huge achievements they had, and I think sometimes you can sit on the achievement of others, and it's getting past that. But we look at Dancing on Ice, we look at ice shows that have come, and the profile of the sport of ice skating can be increased because of their success and achievements, and that recognition that in the UK actually you can get to that level for our athletes as well. For a lot of other countries in winter sports, ice skating would be their country's major sport, their equivalent of our football. We're not here, and look at what we've achieved for a minority sport, really, and a specialised sport. So it's giving people that belief that you can achieve it. It's just getting through those barriers to get there.
And you mentioned Dancing on Ice. On a Sunday evening, millions of people will tune in to watch figure skating. John and I grew up in an era where figure skating was on television a lot in the 80s, following the success of those names. And yet coverage of the World Championships this year out in Japan was, I think, mainly behind the red button. I'm not sure I saw any TV coverage of the European Championships. How much of a challenge is it to get back on the telly, get these stories out there to the British public? Because we want to support British athletes at the Olympic Games, but we want to get to know them.
Yeah, very difficult. I know back in, 2019 was the first time we worked with the BBC to get it on the app, the British Championships, but that had been the first time in about 15 years that British skating had been on the TV. But I think with most sports, I think getting coverage and TV coverage is difficult now. It's not just ice skating; it's a generic position, really. And unfortunately, I think it's one of these things when people achieve, you might get a better profile when somebody's might get a medal or sort of looking at it differently. But we keep, streaming is a huge way now. We have to sort of move with the times as well and look at how else we engage with people. But that's not cheap either.
I suppose it helps, Michelle, that the likes of Lila and Lewis that we mentioned earlier, Lila Fear and Lewis Gibson, that they have just a massive profile on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. They're amazing athletes who their skating makes people happy, and they've got a real fan engagement. And they're doing exceptionally well, and put those two together. I know Lila does her own podcast and speaks to people in different way.
Have you been on it?
I haven't. No. Look, you're lucky to get me on this. It's an unusual position. This is so. But yeah, so they do exceptionally well, and I think as organisations we have to look at the way things are moving forward. That perhaps TV isn't the way, and we have to. Hence why I'm here. How do we reach people? It's not by the old way and the old the old position. It's, my girls will listen to podcasts. That's in their early 20s, mid 20s. Oh God, they're getting older. They sort of have a different cultural, sort of position of what believe it or not, I actually listened to one of your podcasts the other day. It's the first one I'd listened to. I think it's understanding that different environment and promoting it in different ways.
Well, we'll take that as a huge honour.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
I hope we were good.
Well, very good.
Just on Lila and Lewis and Milano Cortino, what are your realistic ambitions? We're a couple of years away, but what could your realistic ambitions be as an organisation to achieve at those Olympics? And mention Cornelius and Elia too.
Our realistic is podium medals, at least 2. I'm going to say at least 2. I hope for more. We've got the talent. We've got such brilliant talent in the UK. It's how we promote them and how we support them. And the UK sport funding will certainly have hopefully a huge benefit. Like I say, we've got Elia that came, sort of at the Europeans in the long track. We've got Niall Tracy in the short track. We've got Anna and Luke, who are our pairs. Last year was the first time in 30 years we had 2 pairs couples at the championships. So it's about bringing that talent through and giving them a platform and supporting the best we can with the resources we've got and their absolute commitment that that they have. So I'd love to be there, but I'll be seeing hoping we have some GBI skating people on the podium.
No one is immune to the situation that we are in at the minute with cost of living crisis, and sport has to fit into that funding puzzle somewhere, along with the health service, the roads, the police, everything else that needs funding in this country. If it doesn't go quite as to plan in 2026, are you confident that UK sport will continue to back you because they know that the work is being done behind the scenes to build the program and bring more athletes through?
Yeah, I think that, look, sort of the way that the funding is allocated now, one of the elements is progression funding. And it's come down to say, look, we're not just going to support the top athletes. We're looking at how you get people through to that pathway. And that's been hugely beneficial for us. It's the only funding we get, and we don't get any for our grassroots yet. So we're very much a membership-based funded organisation, and to get some support in for our progression is fantastic. So I think that the way the funding is done has changed, so it's not just your elite, and it's to get people to that elite position. Look, ice rinks and their electricity bills have gone through the roof, and we work regularly with the rink managers and with rinks to see how we can support each other. I think nothing is cheap nowadays, but it's looking at ways you can support people and promote what you're doing. And I think, to me, it's not just about people on the ice, it's about our volunteers. It's how we can engage people in the various aspects of the sport. We'll have a new app on our Learn to Skate program, so that if you want it, please download it and promote it, and it'll tell you videos telling you how to skate, what the different parts of it are. So we're sort of looking at how we can engage more people by a different way, in saying, go and skate, go, and when you're out with your family on a day out, go skating, and here's how you do a lemon or a choctaw, or whatever the elements of that skating are. So please have a go at it, and I'll send you a link to it. It's there, and tell me what you think of it and if you utilise it. So it's about engaging with people and having fun, and the skills that people learn, whether a volunteer, we have some amazing volunteers in our sport that get something from the sport as well as actual skating.
Well, Michelle Draper, CEO of British Ice Skating, thank you so much for us being the first people that you've spoken to on a podcast. We really do appreciate it. You've got us inspired ahead of Milano Cortino. And I tell you what, as well, I'll have a little word with UK Sport and see if we can get you a ticket out there, because I think you deserve to be out there and celebrating your British success, hopefully, as well. So thank you so much for talking to great British bosses and Anything But Footy.
Thank you.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from, with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.